to make them real. Hiroshi Wago from CAF, I think you could do a better introduction than me on these matters, and I want to give you the word the first time.
Thank you, Jose Manuel, and thank you everyone to be here. It's a pleasure to be here in Panama with all this audience, and I think it's a great opportunity to talk about Asia and Latin America and the Caribbean. First of all, as you know, CAF has 24 member countries, just 2 non-regional members that are Spain and Portugal. However, we have a very strong ties with Asia. For example, with Japan, we have more than 50 years of history between JBIC and CAF. And as well, we have been issue bonds in the Japanese market as well. And as well, we have relationship with other players as JICA as well. In the part of China, we have the presence today of Juan of MCDF, that is one of our great partners in China. And also, we are sharing MCDF right now. As well, we have other countries as India with Mr. Ashok here that has been supporting us with the India Exim Bank and supporting operation and do some co-financial structures. And as well, it's a pleasure to have Korean players. We have been working with Korean Exim Bank for the past years, and we want to involve the private sector. Though is a very great player that has been working with us in Peru especially, but in other countries of the region. And Professor Kimura has the opportunity to come here to participate in the different private roundtables and to bring more the perspective from the IDEJETRO, that is the think tank that has been supporting us. Then for CAF, in the business capacities, it's a very big opportunity to continue working together with all the Asian countries. And I think it's a very good opportunity to increase the volume of businesses. And now we see an increase of trade and investment between the both regions. And I think it's the perfect opportunity to talk about this topic today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hiroshi. Let me start with Carolina Min Yang, who's going to be speaking in English in this part of the conversation in Spanish. I mean, Carolina, sería importante que nos cuentes cuál ha sido la experiencia de esta.
If you could please share with us the experience of this major global player, DOA Engineering, how the company has contributed to this vision and support here in Latin America. Welcome, Carolina. Hello? Can you hear me? Yes, we can hear you. And it is a great pleasure, and thank you for inviting us to this prestigious event. I work with DOA Engineering. We're an engineering firm. We offer services. We are consultants for all types of civil structures, and we provide services in the national market and the global market. In the global market, we offer services to more than 23 countries, and 8 of them, I am in charge of them, of the Latin American region, and the strongest country that we have a presence in, that we work with, is Peru, and we also work in Bolivia, Ecuador, Panama, and we also have an important presence in El Salvador. In the case of Peru, we have been operating our office for over 10 years. We have executed or are executing more than 70 projects, and the projects in Peru we work on with local companies, with local engineers. And this is a very important point, because for the execution of projects, we not only work with our headquarters engineers. We usually deploy 20 to 30 of our engineers, but the remainder of the engineers that we work with, we hire locally for project execution. And as we execute the project, we provide technical training, we share our technology, and also we receive great support, and we learn about the local culture and things that could prove to be problems as the project is carried out. We consider Latin America a very important long-term strategic partner. In our company, we have this vision of continuing in Peru, to grow in Peru in the way we are growing, and to expand expand our businesses, not only remain in Peru, but to expand to Colombia, Panama, El Salvador, and to have a more relevant presence in Latin America, sharing and contributing toward technical growth in each country. Carolina, certainly later on we'll talk about the barriers that you have encountered along the way. I'll ask you about that later.
And ask you three, how can Latin America move beyond exporting commodities and build a stronger partnership with Asia based on investment, technology, and value chains? Let's start with Professor Fukunari.
I think one big difference between LAC and Asia is the way of doing in international division of labor. In case of Asia, particularly Northeast Asia and Southeast Asia, the very large portion of international trade is machinery parts and components. They actually, particularly the export side, the proportion of machinery parts out of total merchandise exports is above 20%. For some countries, actually, reaches 40%. So that means that actually machinery parts are imported a lot and exported a lot too at the same time. So that means that international division of labor is really done task by task or production process-wise international division of labor. And in Latin America, only 2 countries are doing that, Mexico and Costa Rica. And other countries cannot really utilize that kind of economic opportunities to attract international division of labor. In the world, some Asian countries, and then Mexico, Costa Rica, and also some Eastern European countries are doing that. Other countries are developing in areas. Actually, that kind of division of labor is not done at all. What's the difference? That's a connectivity. So that's a physical connectivity and at the same time institutional connectivity. That connectivity is one of the very important necessary conditions to do that kind of international division of labor. So physical connectivity, I mean here logistics infrastructure, and also institutional connectivity that includes trade liberalization, trade facilitation, and others. So those should be there. Otherwise, task by task international division of labor cannot really do that. So I think this is a good opportunity to start doing that because of geopolitical tension and others. Global value chains are really reshuffled now. So it's a chance to come into those kind of value chains. I hope that the LAC can get that kind of opportunity to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Ashok Kumar Bhartia is General Manager and CEO at India Exim Bank. The same question, Ashok. How can we reimagine our relationship with Asia?
Yeah, first of all, I mean, a warm welcome to all the participants present here. And it is a great pleasure to be a part of this session today. And we thank CAF to facilitate our participation in this session. Now coming to LAC and Asia, I think there's a great opportunity for both these regions to collaborate between them. LAC region has it's a strength in having rich being in minerals, energy sector, and they have critical minerals, and they can contribute a lot to the rest of world. Their mineral enrichment is very much aligned with what the world needs today. The world needs green energy and energy transition, and as of now, the trade between Asia and LAC is not to its potential, and that also it is concentrated in very few countries like China, Japan, South Korea, India, and I think it needs much more diversification than that. And these natural resources, whether it is in energy, whether it is in critical minerals, the LAC countries need to leverage those and go into downstream processing of these industries. And Asian countries, they have all the capabilities. They have, many of them have very rich industrial sectors which can really contribute to help these countries to further develop their industries, generate employment, and these natural resources can be useful for rest of the world. And there are many templates now. I mean, LAC countries have signed FTAs with some of the Asian countries, and then with India we have PTA with Mercosur, we have PTA with Chile, and the government of India is also trying to have FTA with now Chile and Peru. Those are under negotiations. And recently, LAC also they signed FTA with the European Union. Like this, they need to do many more efforts so that that more and more institutional and government to government collaboration happens. And I think there are forums like BRICS, IBSA is there, and then from India led International Solar Alliance is also there. So all these, and South-South cooperation, all these platforms can be really useful to creating those collaborations.
Thank you. Real interesting. Juan Miranda is the senior advisor of the MCDF, the Multilateral Cooperation Center for Development Finance. Juan, is there a new path to reimagine the relation between Latin America and Asia beyond exporting commodities? Welcome to the stage.
Good afternoon to everyone. Thank you for attending this. Switch off.
Yes, I think it's better.
Anyway, good. I think one of the first gaps and huge difference that exists between the two regions is the level of investment in connectivity infrastructure. Without that, it is difficult to be competitive. Without that, it's difficult to have high levels of productivity. And of course, lack of connectivity would limit trade. In Asia, the intra-regional trade is a lot higher than it's the case in Latin America. We have countries that are next to one another, and yet they trade very, very little among them. So one thing to figure out, if you're looking for pathways, is what on earth can be done to resolve, at least to improve that kind of, or reduce that kind of problem. The infrastructure that I'm talking about and connectivity is both hard and soft. Hard infrastructure, of course, the usual suspects include ports, airports, roads, railway. Soft is becoming of huge importance, not only in terms of trade facilitation that the professor highlighted, customs harmonization, so that the things that pass the border can do so quickly and not in thousands of hours, like is the case in some cases. And then we have the new brave new world, which is the digital aspect. That too will transform and maybe help some of the countries in Latin America to leap forward in terms of efficiency and productivity. So I suspect that you would all agree that that is a major restraining factor. Of course, and I can come back to this, how to put together these projects, those investments with high quality levels, with the right financing structures. Those are the basic elements that I can discuss maybe later that make things happen, and they are constraints today for sure.
Precisely, let me stay with you. What are the most important conditions needed to unlock more ALC-Asia investment and trade? And by that, I mean rules, infrastructure, logistics, or financing. What do you think are the most important conditions needed to unlock that?
Okay, so I mentioned infrastructure. If you can't get to the port quickly and between the port and your destination point fast and efficiently, then we got a problem. The other one I mentioned is, of course, the soft part, the trade elements, the trade facilitation. And one thing that Asia has less of, and I'm generalizing because Asia is not homogeneous. Asia is not only China, but one thing that they have less of is non-tariff barriers. So if those are in place, of course, they act as a bottleneck to get things done. And I think that there is tremendous space to learn from and to build alliances, collaboration platforms that actually pave the way for that to happen. The other thing is the financial architecture, the availability of long-term, if it's the private sector, investments of non-recourse financing. And maybe in the other part of the world, we're a little bit beyond the level that we find in some parts of Latin America. So infrastructure, bricks and mortar, soft aspects, including digitalization, and of course, money. There is another element that I think is important, and I'm not really sure whether how far the two regions are one from the other, and it is the capability to execute projects. We can design, we can put them together, we might even be able to finance them, but they have to be done by the right contractors in the right way. And I guess that perhaps there is still a little bit of catching up in Latin America with respect to Asia.
We're going to see in minutes the private sector vision about these matters in head of the Carolina. But Professor, let me ask you the same questions. What are the barriers we got to unlock to make it happen?
So that kind of projects have egg and chicken problem. So multiple conditions should be there to go ahead, actually. So I said that connectivity is one of the necessary conditions, but without any demand, that kind of project cannot really go there, actually. So we have to do at the same time investment promotion, the betterment of business climate, and those should go one by one, actually, together. So I think, yeah, maybe we have to start from what sort of industries we have to grow up and how we would attract that kind of investment. That could be foreign or domestic to start out. And then what sort of conditions should be there to make that kind of a project happen. So once those are really done, then I think people can be motivated to really finish up a sort of a project. I think yeah, that should work somehow. We don't say that some people are lazy, some people are not really very motivated. It's not the case. I think once a project is really credible and then implementable, then people can do it.
Thank you, Professor. Ashok, what would be your answer to these challenges?
Yeah, I think as far as LAC is concerned, this area, I mean, they need to, first of all, ease the tariff and non-tariff barriers. They need to come down. And the LAC region should look at its own strengths, its endowment of natural resources, and it should have conducive policies through which it can attract investment in those very areas. And it need to collaborate more with the with other countries. Like, for example, there are best practices in every industry. I would give you example of pharmaceuticals. For pharmaceuticals, there are international benchmarks. Like if a pharmaceutical product is certified by US FDA, then probably there is no need for the same pharmaceutical products when they are imported into these countries to have one more cumbersome layer of investigation on them. It wastes a lot of time, and that is just one example. Then there are many other areas where which processes need to be eased out. although there are already some good examples of all these processes, governments are trying to facilitate, like Pro Colombia is one example. Similar kind of initiatives needs to be taken by many other governments also. Some countries are doing well, like Mexico is one example. Chile is also doing very well, but that is limited to a few countries only. Now Brazil, for example, is such a big country. It has huge amount of natural resources which the world needs, but it needs to attract those investments from various countries who has the capabilities, who has technical skills, technical manpower, like India has. India has is doing very well in IT services. It is doing very well in automobiles, pharmaceuticals. So those strengths, if they are clubbed with the needs and strengths of Latin American countries, I think both regions can do really well.
Those are good countries, but can you tell the countries in Latin America that are worst in that specific area?
I think that is a tricky one, but yeah, I mean, again, there is a lot of scope for some of the countries. Like I would say, maybe Paraguay is one, Venezuela for various. Yeah, I mean, everyone knows, but then let's see the huge potential this country has. And one particular example I would give, Brazil, maybe. Like Brazil is such a huge country, such a vast amount of natural resources it has, whether it's are in hydro, solar, biofuels, then in agro commodities. So this country can do much more if it collaborates with the right kind of technical capabilities with other countries, and attracts the right kind of investment, and make itself as a manufacturing hub for many other products. I think then it can really be a flag bearer for rest of the Latin American region.
Thank you, Chuck. Carolina, les decía que eres la representante del sector privado en este panel y tu voz en ese sentido va a ser muy importante.
Carolina, you are the private sector representative on this panel, so your voice is important. What barriers are you seeing in Latin America that prevent us from reaching our potential, which should be eliminated? As Asian business people developing projects in Latin America, it's not an easy endeavor, not only the language, but also because of the contracts, the agreements, which fall under the regulations, the laws of the various countries. And these regulations are so different from those of the Asian countries. So this is a huge barrier. And then you really have to review and decide whether you want to participate in a project in the region. So we are working on a solution to this. We work with CAF and other multilateral banks because everything they do is based on international standards, and we are used to agreements, contracts falling under the standards for the private sector. Perhaps if it could be easier and not have any fear or as much fear when it comes to the contracts, so that they are more standardized when it comes to risk, to the legal aspect. And we have been awarded several projects with bilateral financing in the region.
That Asia could find here in Latin America and Caribbean.
Sí, creo que tenemos dos barreras. Una, creo que más desde el nivel psicológico, que es una.
Have several barriers. One of them is psychological. We have a very Eurocentric perspective in Latin America and the Caribbean. Our map has Europe at the center and Asia's way too far away. But if we have a map that is drawn by the Chinese, by the Asians, this brings us closer and helps us bring down that psychological barrier, and it will shorten the process of doing what we have to do. And at the bank, our technical staff is trying to figure out how we can bring more opportunities, more knowledge to the region from Asia. We have been working very, very arduously in India, in South Korea, Japan, because we want to bring this so that we can interact on a business level. And I believe in interaction. If we can have a lot of interaction with Asian businessmen, a banking sector between Asia and Latin America, this will help bring down the barriers. And there are many similarities between Latin America and South Asia with their economic system. So I think this is something that we need to leverage, and we should not close this window of opportunity. And Shaksin answer was very interesting, that Mexico and Chile seem to be doing better.
ALC-Asia agenda, and what would make these projects scalable and less risky? What do you think about this matter?
It's a hopeful sector or not. This one dimension, but I think we really have to do in order to generate innovation is certainly machinery industries, particularly electronics, because those are really R&D intensive sector. It generates a lot of innovation in the whole economy and the society. I think that is what LAC really needs. So in order to reduce the risk, I'm not sure, but certainly one thing is that development should be a sort of incremental in a sense. And then so the conversation between the public sector and the private sector is also very important. We have to make many troubleshooting and other things in the middle. We cannot really plan everything from the beginning. So I think that kind of incremental approach to complete the initiation of industry, eventually we really have to have industrial agglomeration. So that it takes time. So I think we have to have reviews and an adjustment, the conversation with the private sector. Those should go step by step.
Which sectors are offering the biggest opportunities nowadays?
I think in new technology, we have countries can leap forward very quickly because of that. But Latin America has commodities. Commodities need to be processed to add value. To process, you have to attract investors and financiers. And to do that, you have to have the right environment for business to function. The one thing that, rather than just industries, one thing that this conversation reminds me of is a study done by McKinsey a few years ago, first in relation to Africa, and they call it the African infrastructure paradox, and infrastructure being mostly connectivity one. I think that applies to Latin America as well. And the storyline, or the bottom line and the storyline from that, is that the region has tremendous opportunities. They have projects and they have finance, access to finance. But despite that, every effort that has been done to put together, let's say, feasibility studies for those projects, those transactions, have very high mortality rates. They never or hardly ever end up with financial close. And there are several constraints that play against this whole thing. And I guess the main finding from that, and I suspect that it is applicable for Latin America and the Caribbean, is project preparation is low quality. And with that, you don't go and talk to any bank or private equity investor, because they don't waste that kind of time in putting together something that they shouldn't. Somebody else should. So that's when I talk about preparation, I'm talking about a complete package of what is basic minimum due diligence, so both technical, financial, legal, regulatory, environmental, social, and of course execution risk, as the DOA has indicated they face from time to time. So
When
perhaps that's one area to
Yes.
focus on.
in that sense, what makes a project really bankable for international investors?
Okay, so if we're talking about private sector transactions, then, and if you want to take it to financial close, what is constraint number one is making sure that you have a deal structure that everybody appreciates and that the risks are split fairly between the various parties. So, and that happens both in PPPs, but also in purely private sector standalone transactions. What kind of risks does a bank face and see? Well, they have investor risk or sponsor risk. They see the regulatory and the commercial risk, and they see the implementation risks. If you package all those things together, other things being equal, because you have to be able then to take the product to the port and then from the port to the market, then the chances of getting it done are significantly, well, hugely different and more attractive. But I would say that those are the kind of the elements that I would package within. Is the project prepared well? Is the risk apportioned equitably between the various parties? And will the bank or banks or private equity will be able to look at them quickly and say, yeah, I'm in, because I'm going to get my money back.
Yes. So let me go back to the question of which sectors do you think are offering the biggest opportunities nowadays?
Yeah, I think in addition to the traditional sectors in Latin America, like energy, automobiles, financial services, etc. I think the one of the most important sector which has huge opportunity is in case of IT and digitalization. Now, this sector is exponentially growing everywhere because of artificial intelligence. Then there are data centers are coming up, and digital transition, cloud transition. All these areas provide huge energy, and very much connected with this sector is energy also. The kind of demand this very sector has resulted for energy is unimaginable. And there also, I mean, there is a complementarity, and Latin America can help the rest of the world to bridge the gap for renewable energy.
Hiroshi, antes de darle la palabra a Carolina para preguntarle por una idea específica o por un caso de éxito.
Or giving the floor to Carolina so she can talk about the various opportunities that are being offered in Latin America. Do you see anyone who's leading the pack? Well, actually, we see a great opportunity for physical infrastructure. I think that LAC has a very important gap in this regard, and we imagine that the gaps we face here in that respect in Latin America, they've already been resolved in Asia. So for example, acquiring massive amounts of energy, energy transition, transportation, any quandary we face has probably, it's been solved in Asia. And this, assuming, coming with preconceived notions about projects and all that, CAF does not distribute profits from projects. We focus on what the region needs to prepare better projects. And what we do with MCDF is we work so that Asian actors can enter. And if we can improve our physical infrastructure, we can make a great jump, and this will solve problems in other sectors such as education, tourism, health. But you really do need good physical infrastructure. Carolina, if you can please talk to us about one success story that you deem important to mention related with DOA, what has been done here in Latin America. As I mentioned previously, I work in the infrastructure sector in engineering, and in our case, executing projects in Peru, we carried out an important project for the new Chinchero Airport in Peru, and this is based on a state-to-state contract agreement. The Peruvian government issued a public tender directed at countries interested, which are capable of being technically capable of carrying out the Chichero Airport project, because it does require a great deal of advanced technology and knowledge to advance the project. So for the first time, we were able to work on this Chinchero project. And we faced several barriers, several difficulties while executing the project. But we are making progress currently. And we are solving any issues, any local barriers. We are working on solving them with the national authorities, the Peruvian authorities and institutions. And we do believe that it is going to be a successful example when we're done.
To improve, to get better at this. Just a final message from Asia to Latin America. What would be your last call to Latin America, your final message in this conversation?
LAC has a huge untapped opportunities to get into task-by-task international division of labor. The key portion is machinery industries, high-tech industries. That's what Latin America can do. And they should do that. In order to do that, a series of infrastructure projects and others is very important. And infrastructure is not for infrastructure itself, but for supporting specific economic activities. So parts and components are moving timely and in a reliable manner. That's a goal. And then LAC can do that. And definitely, so we have to. The Asia can have a lot of collaboration with LAC countries too.
So thank you very much. Something to add, Ashok, one, to end this conversation?
Yeah, I think, there's a lot of opportunities for Indian companies in Latin America, and government of India has taken several initiatives to facilitate those initiatives. There are in India needs critical minerals for its energy transition, and it has very youthful, skillful workforce, which can be used by all these countries to attract those talents and develop capabilities in these countries. And I think for Exim Bank especially, we also have opportunity to work with the development financial institutions and partners like CAF and Inter-American Development Banks, and contribute to the development of Latin America, and facilitate the collaboration between India and
Yeah, sure. When you have some few left minutes or seconds, I think. Something to add?
If you want to blend, pick up where Asia left, just I would say two things: learn
Yes.
from their mistakes,
Mhm.
because they've also made them, and secondly, establish collaboration platforms and partnerships. Maybe third, work with CAF and MCDF.
So, CAF, ¿algún mensaje final para concluir esta interesantísima conversación?
No, pues agradecer.
Conclude this very interesting conversation. No, thank you everyone for being here today. And CAF is at your service to be the bridge between Asia and Latin America. And we are holding a private roundtable with all the Asian countries in which CAF will bring to the table all its department leaders to engage in this conversation. And I urge you to build a very close relationship between your countries and our region. Thank you very much.